kind of gone a little crazy on the movies. I got Hulu, and then I did an add-on for HBO Max. It's kind of like cable on steroids, the whole system, how it's set up. But it's only like $20, I think. Maybe more. But then I also got Apple, which that's going to cut off probably by the end of the month, and then I'll reinstate Apple TV, maybe to watch Slow Horses, probably. Maybe like September, maybe. So I'm going to take another break from Apple. Apple TV, I don't know. I think they might need a little work compared to Hulu when it comes to entertainment. I'm just saying when it comes to entertainment. Or they have some problems with some movies on their thing. But they also have some good stuff too. So the Spike Lee joint, the highest to lowest, I thought was kind of good. But they haven't been in the business, I don't think, as long. I don't know if they've been in business as long as Hulu, but I'm going to put Hulu over there when it comes to entertainment worth. So I got to see Sinners finally, and it was kind of crazy. I liked it better than One Battle After Another. I just didn't like One Battle After Another. I like Licorice Pizza, but it didn't do anything for me. I thought it was untasteful. There's a lot of Oscar winners when it comes to Best Picture that I don't agree with. Like, I never understood why No Man Land won, and it's no offense to the director of Hamnet, and she also did a great movie called The Writer. I can't think of her name right now, sorry about that. But I didn't think that No Man Land was anything special to me. Frances McDormand, the performance is probably incredible if I go back and watch it, so they gave her an Oscar for that. But I'm always kind of tricked in thinking, oh, it got an Oscar, this has got to be the best movie ever. One Battle After Another. I turned it off after an hour. I did a 20-minute pissed off review. It's very anti-Republican, but they're coming off as these like anti-fascist, and they're fascists themselves. So I was like, I don't buy this stuff. These guys are driving Mercedes and they're pretending like they're Antifa. But, I think there's some cool running scenes, just like there is in Licorice Pizza. And I appreciate that with P.T. Anderson running his actors. I think it's cool. It's a little thing that he does that he'll be known for. He's kind of like a track team guy. He's like, here's my stopwatch, guys. We're going to be running. He's got them out in the gym and stuff. So they did do some running in that movie. I'm talking about like physical sprinting, more so than Sinners. Which Sinners didn't win, but I would have gave it to Sinners. I don't think I would have given it to One Battle After Another, but it was just distasteful. And the chick licking Leonardo DiCaprio on the mouth. So I didn't want to watch all that stuff. And also there was maybe some scenes in Sinners too that I've been like, yeah, just cuts an American risk-taking movie thing that doesn't ever work. I learned that way back at NYU when I audited way before I went to the new school, university, inside the Actor Studio Bravo thing that is just, went crazy and got one Emmy, and they got nominations. I understand that American movies take sexual risk because of the purity within America. If you go over to France and you're watching TV over there, you're like, this looks like XXX, and you're like waking up in the mid afternoon or mid morning, and they're showing something more risky than Basic Instinct, or way worse than that, like way worse. So it wasn't like visually offensive as I thought it could be, but I thought, some of the scenes, I was like, I don't really need to see that, I kind of wish you could just hit a VidAngel on your television where it'll just cut that kind of stuff out of your life, and you don't have to have it like visually imprinted in your memory. But One Battle After Another had a few of them, and then the whole Sean Penn scene, with the erection and the gun up the butt. That's just stupid, As a producer, I would have turned it down, and I'm sure they were turned down, and they want to be, because this is their game, It's not my game. But I have to be inducted into it, just like, I watch YouTube vlogs, which I think sometimes are even more entertaining. I'm just being honest. Yeah, YouTube vlogs, I'm like, shoot, I could get more entertainment off this guy walking around New York City and talking about pizza, But Sinners wasn't bad. It was actually risk-taking. It had kind of a Spike Lee feel to it a little bit. The color code, what Spike Lee did with the Five Bloods. There was a color code thing they used. They did it with Beloved. Oprah Winfrey was part of that, which was a good movie back in the day. Beloved was up for a lot of good pictures. I mean, for Best Picture and awards, a lot of good awards. This was a long time ago. So it didn't piss me off. It brought me back way back to UIL. Whenever I was in the Union Interscholastic League and I was an actor and I was in high school. This is my sister was still alive and stuff like that. We had a really pompous drama teacher that was real big about setting, about his scenery. So when we would go and do a UIL show, we would bring in like these U-Haul trucks and all this scenery would be thrown on stage and we would just blow the audience out of their mind when the curtain would raise, But we didn't really do it when we first started because I guess we didn't maybe have the funding or maybe we just didn't have the experience. We did, I think, Mooter Courage. And we did okay. We placed and everything. But there was this there was a school with black drama department. And we didn't understand, nobody understood what they were talking about. There was no scenery really, and that's not a big deal. Really using the UIL, the basic black box structure, where you just bring in the black box, it's okay to do that, But they were doing some August Wilson play or something. I don't know what it was, but no one really could understand it. So the judge did not progress them. I didn't see it. I just heard about it. And my sister was there. And so she was like, I have no idea what that play was about. And people were kind of laughing at them. So they didn't excel in drama. Well, this didn't go that way with Sinners, okay, when it comes to the horror, if you want to call it a horror film or even a film. They took a lot of risk. You can understand what was going on. But I gotta admit, there is some pompous crap going on with music in Hollywood, in movies, that just gets too rich for my blood. And I think they overuse music. The Sting is a good example of using music right. If you watch The Sting with Paul Newman and Robert Redford, great performances, great movie. They have silencers on the guns back in 1936, It's just a really good movie. It was done in the 70s. But they use music sparingly, and they use it very, very well. Sinners does use music well. I think they deserve the Oscar nod for Best Picture. I think they deserve to beat One Battle After Another. I didn't like One Battle After Another. This is like an after vlog of the movies. Because back in the day, this is about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you could go to 7-Eleven and you could go to Redbox and you could rent these Best Winner nominees and you could follow up. It takes time to follow up on who won Best Picture, and like why. And now I'm going to spend $2 at Redbox and I'm going to find out if this movie held its own, and I'm going to skip this movie and this movie. You don't spend maybe $4 or $6, maybe $7, $8. Nowadays, you're going to spend $50 to do that kind of knowledge, or even more. All right, you're going to spend a little bit of money to find out if this, if this particular movie was even worth being mentioned. I think it was. I think it was worth it. Now, as a horror film goes, I think it's going to be talked about for a while. The first thing I thought about, it took 40 minutes to get to the vampire. Okay, so that was risky, which I thought was okay. I thought it was okay to let the vampire... Another thing I liked the fact that the white people were the vampires. And I liked the whole Irish thing, like, your religion or your way of thinking is evil, not my way. So it was very anti-church, and I kind of liked that, okay? The sex stuff I probably would have toned down a little bit. I think it got a little out of hand. A couple of shots they put in there, because of the American movie. I go back to my NYU days whenever I audited this Polish director, I don't remember his name, but we brought in some talk about Schindler's List, and he got upset because they were kicked out of a European country over a sex scene. So he was a professor, and he was like, I think they should cut it too. And he was saying, this is a movie about the Holocaust. They'd be respectful. Why to have a sex scene in a movie about the Holocaust? That doesn't make sense to me. He got really upset, and then the other students were like, you really should go see it, because they were all Spielberg fans, and I was too. I even liked Schindler's List, but the students were like, you should really go see it before you start bad-mouthing Spielberg. Anyway, that's just, I'm bringing that up because of sex scenes in Hollywood. Okay, whether they do it to make money. Do I think they needed it? No. I think they could have survived without it. I think it was a little bit offensive. Some people would have toned it up. Someone would put it down. The sex scenes are out of control. Okay, so the vampire stuff was really cool. I got a pig, so I got to watch out. The vampire stuff, two pigs actually, 481 and his buddy in front of him. But the vampire scenes were actually cool. I liked what they did with their eyes. So the eyes are really, really cool. It looked kind of, it was kind of new approach to the vampire. Now, there wasn't really any major catches, just like in For Dusk to Dawn, and I'm bringing that up. There is some parallel between Quentin Tarantino's Dusk Till Dawn with Harvey Keitel and all the group. You know, even though they really were funny about it, okay? They were kind of joking almost to a certain sense, and there was kind of sex involved, but it was done in a way where you didn't want to turn your head away. You know, I think it was Salma Hayek or something. You're seeing her kind of dance and stuff, so it was kind of, you know, you could still kind of bear it, and then it was a fun approach to the vampire. You know, because this is about Sinners is about vampires eventually. I just kept thinking about that, like, do these people really know what they're doing? Because Ryan Coogler was doing Creed. He did Creed, and he did a documentary about the making of Creed. He also did a really good one called Fruitvale Station, which I've seen a few times, which is kind of a Anton Fuqua. It's kind of a, not really Spike Lee, he's more of a realist. He did get more surreal, and I think also one thing I wanted to say, it was kind of like a musical. It reminded me of kind of like a musical. And then he did get kind of crazy with these scenes where he brought in like different times and stuff. I thought that was a risk. It'll probably hold its own. I could see how people may have thought that would maybe have been stupid or corny or just kind of like the Twilight Zone or something. They might could have had a different approach to that would really have been impactful. You know, like maybe even using like Jimi Hendrix, like someone that like looked exactly like Jimi Hendrix, you know. I thought that was kind of cool. And then I liked the Robert Johnson guy, even though it was another guy. I thought they should have used Robert Johnson, brought him in, because the whole thing about Robert Johnson is that he actually sucked. And he would go to these places. That guy didn't. He was always good. You know, which I thought was a little fake. Meaning Robert Johnson, before he became what he was, and they took made a record for him, a vinyl record, and put him on the radio, he was kind of laughed at bars and stuff. They'd let him in, he'd play, they kind of laugh at him, you know. So he went off wherever, and he started practicing and became like really, really good. I think they may have kind of maybe skipped over some of that, and they just made this guy dynamite to save time, and he just picks up the guitar and he's wonderful. The guy had a cool voice. I thought that stuff was cool. They could have tweaked that a little bit better. They could have taken it more serious, because Robert Johnson supposedly went off to the crossroads, and he basically, like, you know, sold his soul to the devil. That hoodoo kind of stuff was there that I think they kind of threw in there in a generic way, and they didn't explore. It could, like I'm saying, it could have been a really, really cool, you know, really great freaking American horror film. Not that it wasn't, you know, it was worth the $5 or whatever. But another thing too is now we're talking about Robert Johnson. Now we're talking about seeing like a Jimi Hendrix type appear, playing the guitar in the middle of the dance and all this kind of craziness. I would have used Jimi Hendrix, like a Jimi Hendrix lookalike. Had him doing like Little Wing or something, you know. I would have taken like more kind of copyright risk, if you know what I mean. And they didn't really do that. They made him like some kind of crop worker, you know, some kind of guy that was just very, very good with the guitar. And then he uses it as a weapon because it has silver in it, and they didn't really explore that too well. You didn't understand. Okay, here's something I do have a problem with Sinners. Okay, you didn't really have that strong element of this are the vampire rules. You know, you kind of had Lost Boys is a really good vampire movie. I don't know why, really. You see the vampires in the very beginning, and you see the vampires throughout the whole film. they do explore Jim Morrison, right? Like, was Jim Morrison a vampire? Was Robert Johnson a vampire? You know, they kind of somewhat explored that. They just didn't do it fully for whatever reason. I don't know. It's very creepy, though. It is creepy, though. It's a creepy film because you start to kind of feel the whole what is a vampire, you know, and then, of course, there was a rule. The sun could kill them, the sunlight, and then they could burn in the sunlight, and then they could get stuck with a stick, you know, like a wooden stick in the heart. I think they kind of overdid that a little bit with the blood, and there's just a lot of blood and stuff like that. I mean, it wasn't as bad as, like, Dusk Till Dawn, which is you're laughing in the movie theater. There's probably laughter. And then I remember what was creepy, okay, about this is we picked up a guy. We were doing rideshare. He was from Louisiana, and he had this weird accent and stuff. And he had just seen Sinners and was talking kind of about it. We were asking about it. But he had this real weird voice. It was creepy because we thought he was kind of a vampire. We hadn't seen it. So I think it was good. And it's kind of evil. Like Rosemary's Baby has this tainted kind of thing. I don't think it's on that level. I don't think it's on what Roman Polanski's for Rosemary's Baby, which is not really a horror film. It's more of a cult film. I think it falls into like some other genre, but it is American horror, but it's almost a musical. So I'm not like completely blown away, but I would have gave it Best Picture over One Battle After Another. So at least they get that. And I think his performance, he played twins. Did he deserve the Oscar? You know, I don't know if I would have voted for it, really, to be honest. I think there was some, you know, the physicality of him playing Creed and all that kind of stuff. I think that he went beyond just physicality of the role. There was some, you know, intellectual, like, things that he was doing, choosing as an actor. So I can see why they nominated him. I probably would have nominated him, maybe. I may not have. If so-and-so nominated him and told me, hey, you guys see this performance by Michael P. Jordan? Because I don't know who the dude was. I didn't even put him, whenever I was guessing who was going to win, if it was going to be Leonardo DiCaprio or if it was going to be the other guy. You know, I don't even remember who was up for Oscars. I don't even think I mentioned him. So it was kind of an interesting, I went back and watched it, and I was thinking, yeah, there are some interesting choices because he's playing twins, but I don't see an Oscar winner. But they gave it to him, so he has it. I don't see any, like, I don't see Last Tango in Paris, you know. I'm not blown away. I'm not seeing Bad Lieutenant, Harvey Keitel's Bad Lieutenant. I'm not seeing anything major in it other than maybe him playing twins, you know. It's sad now that, you know, because there was actors like Dustin Hoffman, you know, that would get for Rain Man. You know, there's actors like Anthony Hopkins that get nominated for Silence of the Lambs. I was surprised that he got it. So I'm just kind of like, okay, yeah, I see. Played some twins. There is some cool stuff. His accent's cool. I believe his performance, and he's playing like a gangster, like from the time of Al Capone. This is another interesting thing they brought up in the movie. There's a lot of cool things about the movie, actually. They bring in Al Capone's name. They don't talk about Bonnie and Clyde because they were about 10 years apart. But there was a sense of, I personally, okay, just to be honest, the ending didn't make any sense to me about the KKK and him shooting everyone down with a bar. So they call those kinds of guns, like a heavy machine gun. And why is he shooting them just because they're going to knock on his door? And he starts killing them all. That there was no lead up to that. It was like a surprise Mexican standoff movie. It wasn't even really a Mexican standoff. He just goes and kills everyone. It didn't connect with the whole vampire story. The script needed work, okay? But they still got nominated. Those things are just how it is, man. People will spend a year on trying to make a script work, you know? And so all of a sudden, we're just going to have a big shootout. He's going to kill a bunch of KKK people. Nah, I don't buy that. I'm not going to buy that, you know? It doesn't connect with the vampires. And, you know, yeah, I know. Listen, here's how it works in the world today, okay? When it comes to black people and it comes to white people, and I'm talking about in the world. I'm not talking about in the United States of America. In the world, there are more black people than white people. There are about 300 or 400,000 more in Africa, in the continent, okay? And including America. And when it comes to white people in the world, they're actually a minority compared to the population of black people. Now, I know they're making a comment about white people and blood and things like that. So the white person is like the evil person. If you go to the movie theater to watch Sinners and you're sitting, it reminds me of like something Jubilee Theater down in Fort Worth. They do a lot of black theater, and they're very emotional. They're very much like how the movie is. It's very you would participate with this film. You would participate with it if you went to the movie theater. They'd be talking to the screen. It has that kind of thing. So as a movie, I can see why they choose what they did. But me, I'm just thinking, oh, white people evil, white people vampire. Well, in this country, probably so. Because in America, there's far more white people than there are black people. They are a minority in this country. So it's not set like in Africa. It's set in the South. And I felt that they would have been killed not because of vampires, but because of the freaking KKK, which they kind of explored that a little bit because they're driving a lot in it. So this is a very, they can't be around a white woman. Yeah, they have to leave her behind. They have to, if she comes into the juke joint, she has to be escorted out because she get them all busted, or all killed. They're not clear with that. And also, I didn't believe that very much. I thought that was put in there to piss someone like me off, which it does, I'm not going to lie. But it pisses the church off too, and they lie about it. I think the church thing in there works. The church knocking on the door. There's a lot of knocking on the door because the vampire has to ask to go in. But they have to be clear with it, They can't just suggest it. It's the black man and the white woman taboo, that's in society that, I think is going to be a continuous war, regardless if Sinners got won Best Picture or not. And that's going to be in the movie, that quote me, that's going to be mentioned in the movie reviews, so it's about racism, and it's about like, does the black man belong with the white woman? Well, that time of the KKK, man, you don't need to talk about vampires. Vampires did nothing compared to what white people did to black people for touching a white woman. You know what I mean? It is an extreme fucking hatred that's beyond a movie, right? Because if you go just miles from here in Texas, in Waco, you will find one of the worst lynchings because of that. A white woman was raped by a black guy. This stuff's happened. The crowd didn't care after this happened in Waco. There's a memorial about it. They drugged the guy out. They cut his hands. They cut his feet off. They strung him up on a tree and they burned him alive. He burned alive in front of everyone. There's a freaking movie that Coogler could go visit, rather than this fun little American vampire movie. And not too long ago, 30, maybe 40 years ago, a man was drawn from his ankles for just being black or for whatever reason to his death. To his freaking death. He was drugged. So there's extreme racism. I think they should have gone further with that. There's extreme hatred of the white man to protect his beautiful wife, right, against this monster, the black man, which is not in this movie. It's the opposite. The white person is the one spreading the vampire disease. So there's a hatred, and hatred is mentioned. There's hoodoo words mentioned about hatred and stuff. There is a hatred that's out there that's on a vampire level that I think they missed some of that too. There could have been more involvement with like the KKK that was mentioned. There could be more involvement in the movie. They may have just got in trouble for it, or they didn't want to explore it. But it took 40 minutes to get to the vampire. But they handled a lot of multicultural questions in a very serious way. So I think it would have gone to Sinners, not to One Battle After Another. One Battle After Another was throwing in all multicultural causes at one time, too much. Nothing to do with Vineland, which I'm reading right now, Thomas Pynchon's Vineland. And I thought they brutally attacked Vineland, and they shouldn't even be in the Wikipedia. It should be removed. It's not adapted from Vineland. Don't even try that shit, you know? But, yeah, Sinners is a better movie. I mean, it does hit upon a lot of taboos about the black man and the fear of that. But it reverses it and makes the white man the vampire. Which, hell, you know, we might be, you know?